coronavirus event sponsored by Tap the Potential. I am your host, Dr. Sabrina Starling, the Business Psychologist. We are doing these Facebook Lives every Monday from the Tap the Potential Facebook page to support entrepreneurs and their teams through the coronavirus event. This is going to be a change in life circumstances for all of us. We're in the midst of it, and every day, every week, we have a new circumstance that we're dealing with. So at Tap the Potential, we feel it's very important that we stay in communication with you and support you in your self-care and your strategy through this time, because it is my highest intention that we take care of our entrepreneurial community internationally, not just in the United States. Today, I have Sir Stephen Wilkinson with us. He is the founder of Good and Prosper. Sir Stephen was a guest, the VIP speaker at the Breakthroughs on the Bayou event that we had here at the Entrepreneurs Retreat Center, 3 weeks ago? It feels like it was a lifetime ago, Sir Stephen.
It was a lifetime ago. It was a different century. I don't think it was the same. It was the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of March, but I don't think it was in this century. I think it was a different century.
I totally agree. We have a whole new reality that we're dealing with. When we were together here, you focused on helping us entrepreneurs look at our business as assets, and our businesses really are our greatest asset. And so I wanted to have you join me with this Facebook Live so that we could be talking about, are you protecting your greatest asset during this coronavirus event? And so we're going to be getting into that later today in the Facebook Live. I want to do a little preliminary talk with our entrepreneurs about self-care during this time. And it's my intention for those of you listening that you share this information with your teams, because your teams, the individuals on your team right now may very well be feeling very unsafe, worried about their physical health, their family members' physical health, dealing with the stress of being cooped up if they're having to work from home. If they're having to go into the office, then they're dealing with the stress of worrying, am I going to get contaminated? Am I going to contaminate someone else? So there's a lot of just extra stress in our world today. So I want to talk about that, and then we're going to have Sir Stephen talk with us about protecting our greatest asset. And he's actually created a wonderful resource that we're going to share with you that you'll be able to download after this Facebook Live today. So with that, let me start by talking to you as the business psychologist about you and your mindset, because 90% of getting through the coronavirus event is going to come to your mindset. And what I mean by that is staying in a very positive, healthy, resilient, growth-oriented mindset. We have to be very protective of our headspace as entrepreneurs, because this is an event and we will come out on the other side. And I really encourage you, if you haven't done it yet, now is the time to sit down and think about, what is your vision for your business in the next 2 years? What do you want your business and your life to look like? How do you want to be experiencing your days? Get that picture clearly anchored in your mind. That is your vision of where you're headed. And keep in mind, what we're going through right now is an event. It's going to cause a lot of change. And I know it may feel very hard for you to think about, I can't even tell you what I'm doing tomorrow. What I thought I was doing tomorrow keeps changing. I want you to put that aside and really think, 2 years from now, you have survived this, you're healthy, your family is healthy, your team is healthy. What is going on in your life and in your business right in the present tense as if it's happening? I have my vision for December 2021. I was reading through it this morning, and I have to admit, Sir Stephen, as I was looking at it, I was a little reluctant to even look at it, because I thought, it's not going to be the same. There's no way what I projected when I wrote this past January, there's no way that that's going to happen by December 2021, given all the things that are going on right now. And as I started reading it, I realized it absolutely can still happen. What we're going through right now is an event. And if I hold in mind how I want to be and my vision for what Tap the Potential is creating in the world in the next 2 years, we can utilize the circumstance that we're in right now to move towards that vision. And that is something that I really want to share that thinking with all of you. And so I'm putting a graphic up here on the screen. And this is your invitation to be strategic. And what I want you to understand is we want to avoid the survival trap. So the survival trap is where we make a short-term decision that gets us through today or next week or the next 2 months, but that can actually take us very far off course from our vision. So as we look at, revenues are shrinking in a lot of these businesses. And so it's tempting to say, okay, I need to lay off team members and downsize drastically to get through, which that may be an option for you. And think about, are there any other options that would move me closer to my vision? Because that may help you survive in the short term, but it may not be a strategy that gets you to your long-term vision. So going through this event, it's going to be a continual navigation between dealing with the now and the future. And if we hold in mind how we want to be, how we want to show up, and the business that we want to come out of this with, we will make better short-term decisions that serve that longer-term future. Sir Stephen, do you want to weigh in on anything with that?
Well, I think it's been an enormously challenging 2 weeks for everybody. And it's been challenging on all sorts of different levels. Number one, it's been challenging just to recognize that on an individual level, businesses are being severely, possibly even catastrophically impacted. That pushes all our fear and flight buttons, causes us to go into overdrive and experience existential panic. That's on the first level, which needs dealing with. The second one is trying to understand what's happening in our economy. How can it be that 2 weeks ago we were a free market economy with responsible for our own businesses, and now suddenly we've been mandated to shut down? Everybody just shut down, stop working. I read a sentence today in an essay by the head of one of the largest commercial mortgage lending organizations in the United States, who contained this half sentence within his essay, which said, "The unfortunate but necessary cessation of general commerce nationwide." I never thought I would read that sentence at any time in my life. Unfortunate but necessary cessation of general commerce. That's us.
Yeah.
We are that's us. That's every single one of us is now ceasing necessarily, but unfortunately, our general commerce. In other words, getting on with doing our business. Just getting your head around that fact is enough to blow several fuses in a normal brain. I mean, I'm finding it really difficult just to comprehend how far we've come in the last 2 weeks. And from that, we can draw some conclusions. Number one, we're not alone. This is not something that's happening to you or to us or to a few people. It's happening to everybody, everywhere. We've never faced anything quite as significant in its speed or in the consequences of it for generations. Even in the run up to world wars, we've had more notice than this. So I don't think it makes any sense whatsoever to dwell too much on how we're going to come out of this, how long it's going to last. We are where we are, and the only thing we can focus on is being as good as we can be today, because things are changing so rapidly.
Yes.
Firstly, and to recognize that it's not about you, it's not your fault, it's not any sign of weakness or failure. This is happening to absolutely everybody. And the conclusion that I've come to over the past couple of days is it doesn't matter how this turns out. It really doesn't, because if it turns out well and it's over soon, whatever soon means, then we will want to have been as good as we can possibly be during this time. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't turn out well, at least you've tried.
Right.
And
Right.
and because it's a systemic catastrophe, the system is also working really hard to make sure that the fallout for each individual is kept to as small an amount as possible. And governments, I think for the very first time in any crisis, are actually realizing that small business owners are the backbone, the network, the nervous system of the entire economy, and that it's not just a question of saving 2 or 3 airlines or one or two automotive manufacturers. This is impacting everybody. And I think
Yes.
governments, for the very first time, are recognizing they're going to have to throw a huge blanket over this to make sure that the delicate nervous system of the entire economy is not damaged beyond repair. And because they are doing that, I think we can be reasonably secure in the knowledge that whether it's the best program or not, programs will be developed that will help us get through this. And as I say, what happens after that is not something we need to concern ourselves with now. It really isn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And my personal philosophy when it comes to government intervention is, and this is like how I think about Social Security for myself. It'll be great if it's there, but I'm going to set myself up so I don't need that. I don't rely on it. And that's what I would encourage our entrepreneurs to recognize. There likely will be a lot of support and help, and let's do our best with what we have to set ourselves up so that we can come out of this in a strong way. And so, Stephen, you were in the room with me and the entrepreneurs at the Breakthroughs on the Bayou retreat. I believe you probably felt this too, how strong and resilient that group of entrepreneurs is. And I draw on that energy when I think about the challenges ahead for all of us entrepreneurs. One of the things that entrepreneurs are known for is the ability to bounce back and come back. And usually we come back stronger than we were. And that, I think, we are facing situations in our businesses where we're going to have to get very lean and very focused. And when we do that and we bring that forward as we come out of the coronavirus event, our businesses, our teams, everyone will be stronger. And with the support that will be available to us, we'll be able to leverage that as well. So I really appreciate you sharing those observations and thoughts.
And I think the most important thing that I would say following on from that is that we're noticing across the world a return to community.
Mm.
The individualism that has been celebrated and enforced almost over the past, 20 years, came to an end last week, because we cannot afford to be exclusively individualists. We just can't afford it. And we are seeing that community is everything in these times. You're seeing that the positive side, people really going out of their way to helping each other, people being there for each other, recognizing this is something we have to get through together. There's a sense of togetherness. There is also, interestingly, an increase in shaming. And shame was something that, I think somebody said after Clinton, shame had been removed as an obstacle as a method of taming politicians. We were in a post-shame era, but shame is also coming back because now people who are stockpiling, people who are leaving elderly people without any food or loo paper or whatever else people are stockpiling in the supermarkets is being recognized as selfish.
Yeah.
And selfish is suddenly bad. So with this rediscovering community, and at the same time rediscovering the things that protect community, like not being selfish.
Yeah. Well,
and those are all things, I think, which they will recede slightly, as they always do after the crisis is over, but we are discovering how valuable they are. And finding community in these times, getting people to talk to who share the same positive mindset, who are encouraging and not destructive, who are who are able to see the positive aspects of this, the if you like, character building, the ability to make an impact, to step up, to be a leader, to shine, to be the hero that you would like to be when you're talking about this in 10 years' time.
Yes. And I think that future thinking, that fast forward thinking about how do I want to think about and reflect on how I showed up during this time. Do I want to reflect on, wow, I hoarded my toilet paper, look at me? Or do I want to think about, I showed up and I supported others, I took care of my family, I took care of myself, and I looked for a way to be a gift from my gifts. And so one of the things, as you talked about community, that I've been reflecting on quite a bit is there's a rebalancing in our dominant discourse about entrepreneurship and work, and the discourse about work. And especially in America, we have quite a focus on work hard. And if you're an entrepreneur, work is everything. And with what is going on now, the whole globe is making a shift towards work supports life. We have to stop commerce in support of life. That is a massive rebalance right there. And that is something, as I was out walking with my daughter yesterday afternoon, and I've been able to, this past week, she's home with me, and I've been able to go on walks with her midday every day. And I'm appreciating that opportunity. I didn't have that 2 or 3 weeks ago. I would just work. She was at school. Now she's home with me. So I have that opportunity. There's lots of opportunities and good things in the midst of the stressors that we're dealing with. And I really would encourage entrepreneurs and teams, as you're listening to this, to be looking for, what can we experience gratitude for? What are the wins and successes that are happening in our families, with our teams, the good stuff that's going on? And my tip of the week that I want to share here on self-care is to implement a daily huddle with your team for morale's sake. And that daily huddle could happen over Zoom. And if your team doesn't have cameras, they can participate without cameras. But take a few minutes each day with your team to focus on, here's the update for the business, here's our wins and successes from the past day, and what are our gratitudes? What are we grateful for? There's always health to be grateful for, especially during this time, the time with family. Anything that's going on, ways that we're showing up and supporting in the community, giving voice to that, and also allowing team members to have that opportunity to talk about whatever fears they have. And fears, we can hesitate to talk about fear because we don't want to magnify it. But there's something that happens when we put a fear out and we have a group respond to that in a positive, supportive way. And when your team members can feel safe and supported by you as they talk about their fears, it will do a lot to settle people down and support and keep morale good. So that's my tip for this week. If you haven't done it already, implement a daily huddle where you talk about wins, successes, gratitudes, fears, and ask team members, what support do you need? Let them voice that and look for ways that other team members can show up and support, to be a gift in that time.
Can I add something to that?
Please, yes.
And I think that's a great opportunity. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly. Creating a group experience or a team effort out of this is probably the only way to survive this with your mental health, not only intact but also improved. But there are so many random acts of kindness visible at the moment. People really going out of their way to doing extraordinary things, and just collecting those and sharing them is has an amazing effect on the team. Just sharing stories of kindness.
Yes, and that can be part of the agenda on the huddle too, is what random acts of kindness have you given or experienced or witnessed out there in the world, and sharing the positive energy around that. Stacy Seguin, one of our strategists at Tap the Potential, just chimed in and she said, naming that elephant in the room reduces its power over you. Fear, shame, regret, whatever it is, say it so that it does not hold power over you. So that opportunity is really important. I want to give a few more self-care tips, and then we're going to dive into strategy and business strategy. And Sir Stephen has a lot of good information to share with us in that regard. So we've been talking about our mindset. One tool that I would encourage you to use during this time is to be highly protective of what comes in here through all channels. I know we talk about putting masks on and gloves to protect against coronavirus, but all senses, visually, when we're watching the news, when we're reading social media, when we're hearing news, when we're engaging in conversation where people are going very, very negative and doomsday type thinking and scenarios, we are not protecting our mindset. We need to protect our mindset. We have to, I don't say have to, we should limit our news intake. I would recommend checking news midday, once a day, to get an update of what's going on in the world, and check a couple of major news sources rather than going into social media for your news, because it's sensationalized. And I read articles rather than watching video, because again, video is very visual. Our brain does not distinguish between what's actually happening to us and what we're seeing on the screen. We have those primitive reactions in our brain that make us experience heightened fear, because if we see graphic images on the screen, we will have that experience. I learned this firsthand during 9/11 and watching, the towers falling repeatedly on TV. That is such an unhealthy thing to do, and we need to be very mindful of that for ourselves during coronavirus. Sleep is critical for our self-care, for our resiliency, our immune system. This is the time to be getting those 8 hours of sleep a night. That's the best thing we can be doing, quite honestly, to stay healthy during this time. The next best thing is exercise. So daily exercise. If you have the opportunity and it's not cold and snowy where you are, get out and walk, get the fresh air. Of course, keep your social distancing that you need to, but be sure to wave and smile at people, because that also creates a good feeling. That feeling of we're in community, as Sir Stephen was talking about. And strategic thinking and surrounding yourself as entrepreneurs with other entrepreneurs who are ready to talk strategy with you, who want to support you through this event, who will help you continue thinking from that growth-oriented mindset. One resource that I want to be sure that you're aware of is the Profit by Design podcast. We have 80 plus episodes on that podcast. And that's a great way to fill your head with good strategy and thinking about your business from a mindset of keeping it sustainable during this time. I'm hearing some crazy music coming from my living room. My kids are home. I don't know what toy is going off right now, so I apologize for that. So I'm going to pop the link for the Profit by Design podcast into the links here, so you can access that. The other thing that I want to share with you is Tuesday, Lisa Kramer, who teaches our Coach Approach program at Tap the Potential and also facilitates our Leadership Mastermind, is leading a yoga session. She's a certified yoga instructor as well. She's leading a yoga session over Zoom for anyone associated with Tap the Potential. Entrepreneurs, team members, whoever, and it's open to beginners. You don't have to register. You can keep your camera off so nobody will watch you doing yoga in your living room. But yoga is a great way to keep a positive, healthy mindset, and it also is linked to immune system functioning. So I would encourage you to take us up on that opportunity. You don't have to register. There's no charge to participate. Lisa is genuinely showing up and being a gift from her gifts, and I greatly appreciate that from her. So the tapthepotential.com/yoga is the Zoom link. That will happen tomorrow at noon Central, 1 Eastern, 1 Mountain, 10 Pacific. And then finally, the other thing that I want to make you aware of is our assessment that we have on the Tap the Potential site to support you with entrepreneurial burnout and looking at the gaps that currently exist in your business. One of my big concerns about entrepreneurs coming into the coronavirus, Sir Stephen, is that many entrepreneurs are already operating from a place of survival and just kind of barely hanging on by the fingernails in business. And then we add a huge stressor like the coronavirus event into the situation. And I'm very concerned about the mental health of entrepreneurs during this time. So I would recommend that you take our assessment so you can get a bead on where your mental health is in relation to your business functioning, as well as the gaps that exist in your business. You'll have the opportunity to meet with Darren Hopman, who's our success team lead at Tap the Potential, and he'll debrief your assessment with you, and he'll talk to you about the connection between the gaps in your business and the symptoms of entrepreneurial burnout that you're experiencing. Getting a handle on what your current level is on the entrepreneurial burnout will help you look at what measures do you need to put in place for your own self-care and in your business to support you so that entrepreneurial burnout does not get out of hand. That link to take that assessment, and that is also a free assessment. There is no charge for that. I'm posting that there. It's tapthepotential.com/assessment. Stacy asked a question, what time is yoga? So yoga is Tuesday, the 24th, noon Central, 1 Eastern, 11 Mountain, 10 Pacific. It will be 60-minute session. And the link that I posted, tapthepotential.com/yoga, is a live link to a Zoom call. So just join that call at that time using that link. There's no place to register for that. All right, so Sir Stephen, I want to dig into strategy here with you. You have created over the weekend, you sat down to write your thoughts about what entrepreneurs need to be thinking about to protect their greatest asset, their business, during the time of coronavirus. And you shared with me that you started writing and it became a 33-page document. Like it just kind of poured out of you, and you're calling it Leadership in the Time of COVID-19. So share with us some about why you felt compelled to write this, and what are some of the key points that are in this document, in this ebook?
Yeah, gladly. I will. I didn't set off to write it. I found myself sharing sort of tidbits and tips and really good blog articles or videos from a variety of different authors and entrepreneurs who were taking the time to reflect on what was happening and giving what I felt was outstanding advice to the entrepreneurial community in this time of stress. And after I'd sent about 20 different emails with different links, I decided that probably wasn't such a good idea, and I really should give it some context. So there was one particular friend that I was writing to, and I started saying, these are a couple of resources that I found really useful, and I can attest to them being just good original ideas. And that email turned into a document, and I thought, I better not do this in an email. I better do this in a document. And the document just took on a life of its own. And I think 7 or 8 hours later, I got up dehydrated and realized that there was about 25 pages worth of stuff in there, which I couldn't possibly send out just as it was, because it was, just too much. So I decided to publish it as an ebook and get somebody who knows what they're doing to look over it and create an attractive document that, more than anything else, was designed as action items. Because we've got two issues, I think, at the moment. Issue number one is the urgent need for restructuring. And if your revenue is falling off a cliff, then your asset suddenly looks horribly like a liability, because you've got a cost structure that doesn't respond as quickly as your revenue is falling. So that gap suddenly becomes a liability, feeds into your balance sheet, just starts eating away, cannibalizing your equity. Depending on how much equity you've got, suddenly you find after a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 months, your equity is not only gone, but it's negative, and your liability is still there. So you're in a classic restructuring case, with one major difference, and that is that everybody is looking at their businesses as restructuring cases, and you can't restructure the entire economy at one go. It just doesn't work. So if everybody's cutting costs, and if everybody's getting their teams down, and if everybody is not paying their bills, then the whole thing comes grinding to a halt. So on the one hand, there is this restructuring pressure, which, even though you may not call it that, is what you're experiencing when you're short of breath and you're thinking, my revenues are falling, what can I do with my cost structure, my business is going out of control. So there's that side of it, and I'll come to that in a minute. And then there's the other side of it, which is, how do I turn this to my advantage? And if you're underwater, you do not think about improving your swimming technique. That's not at the forefront of your mind, nor do you think about how nice it would be to be in a boat. All you're doing is splashing around, trying to get your head back over water again. So, but the only way you are going to get back into motion again is if you do start concentrating on your swimming stroke. And I'm not going to overstress this metaphor because it'll run out of runway very shortly. But and to concentrate on stuff that you can do today, right now, every day, because not only do you not know when this is going to end, you don't know when it's going to turn around. And I was about to say the beauty, the positive aspect of this particular crisis is that because it's a systemic crisis and everybody is facing it, and because it's been mandated from government, who are, and I've sort of slowly come around to this understanding that the government are the only institution in civil society who can actually tell us to stay indoors and mean it. Because if that is what's necessary, then just relying on us all to do this through common sense is not going to work. So we need somebody to tell us, this is what you need to do, so go and do it now. And because that is the case, and I've given up even thinking about that, I'm just accepting it as the truth. And I don't need to become an amateur epidemiologist and try and understand better than the government's own advisors whether this is actually the right thing to do or not. It's a waste of energy. It really is. It's a complete waste of time trying to learn the ins and outs of this virus and its possible ramifications at the same time as trying to run your business. It's not your job, it's not your business, and you can either go into opposition and become a revolutionary and say, I'm not going to do it because I'm a libertarian, or I'm in favor of freedom and I don't like all this coercion. Or you can just stop thinking about it and do what you're told. Difficult as I find that to do, and I'm historically deeply opposed to telling me what to do. This time, I think it makes sense. And because people are telling me what to do, they also have to come up with a solution for the consequences of that. That means that government programs are being rattled out faster than we can think, trying to catch this before the COVID virus is the least of our problems. Mm. So given that is the situation, there are certain things that you can do that make this a different sort of restructuring effort. And one of the most important things is actually keeping your team together. Normally in a restructuring, you would be looking at that fixed cost block right at the beginning. There's a rule for restructuring, which is to follow the same path that or the same process that furniture removal men pursue, which is always to take the biggest bits of furniture first and save the small bits for the end. So you don't start a restructuring by looking which apps you can cancel. You start by seeing how you can reduce your personnel fixed costs. But this time is different. It may be that this is a good time to let go of one or two people who you know that you should have let go possibly sometime previously. But by and large, this is a time when the business needs to try and hold everybody together. And the programs that are being devised are being designed to do just that, to make sure that people are staying in their jobs as long as this happens, because quite honestly, if they don't, they're going to land on the government payroll anyway through different programs. So this is a much more efficient method of keeping people in the places where they were creating value beforehand, and of course will create more value when this is over. So keeping the team, sorry.
I just want to jump in, as one who writes about how to hire the best and building teams and creating loyalty. I thoroughly agree with everything you just said. And I really encourage entrepreneurs to be looking at your team and being honest with yourself and saying, are these A players on my team? Are they giving their all? Are they showing up? Are they strategic problem solvers? Are they putting in their heart and soul into the work? Or are they just kind of hanging out there and letting everyone else carry the load? And what you said about letting people go, if you have people on your team that you have seen signs that they are not stepping up as A players, they're really letting everyone else carry the burden, I would encourage you to let them go, because that becomes very cancerous on a team that needs to pull together during this.
Honestly, in these sort of times, you can tell that immediately, because if those people, those employees are using this as a holiday and they're not showing up on your calls and they're not doing then you just know, and then it makes it quite easy. But at the same time, and that was sort of that was the motivation behind writing this ebook, Leadership in the Times of COVID, was that the 7 things that I've mentioned, they're like cogs, they all work together. But at the very center of that is the cog of you as the leader, because whatever attitude you bring to this, however you show up, whatever energy you bring to this situation, will determine how the rest of it functions. So you need to look after you first. And this is while writing it, I suddenly realized this is actually an amazing opportunity to do what so many small and medium-sized business owners find so difficult to do, and that is to extract themselves from their business and to remind themselves, their families, and particularly themselves and the business, that they are not the business. So they have to look after themselves so that they can make the best decisions for the business. And I don't think there is any move by an entrepreneur that creates as much potential for long-term value in the business, for the employees, for everybody, than making that distinction and starting to live it.
Absolutely.
Because if it's all about you, then it will be almost impossible to stand outside and to make rational decisions and to take care of yourself. And if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be making the right decision. So it's a feedback loop that, once you've decided to break it, is extraordinarily beneficial. And this is a great time to do it, because it's not your fault. This is not your problem. This problem wasn't of your making. Mostly when businesses go into crisis, it is absolutely a problem of the leader. It is absolutely a problem of neglect of strategy, of bad hiring, of not paying attention to finances, of all these things that may be true in your business, but at the same time, this time it's an external issue. So this is a great time to step back and say, I'm me, this is my business. What do I do? What do I need to do to take care of myself so that I can step up and be the best leader I need to be in this situation? Because we're going to come through this, and you will want to tell, and you will certainly want other people to tell, the story of how you were a hero and not an anti-hero in this particular story.
Yes. And, I would actually say I want my team to be the hero. I want to be the guide for my team through this. And so the self-care piece, we have to put our own oxygen mask on first and take care of ourselves. I deliberately shut off this weekend totally so I could show up here refreshed on Monday, because I was fried on Friday afternoon after having so many conversations with entrepreneurs in crisis. Trapper's weighing in here. He says he is hearing so much negativity from business leaders. And I want to say, we need to be different. We need to be the leaders to stand out and are different. And I want to share with you our rally cry on the Tap the Potential team. And I would encourage you all to adopt this for yourselves and take it back into your team. And Sir Stephen and I will end with it today to get you pumped up. But our rally cry is lead with love, shine bright, be a gift. Lead with love. Love yourself first, then love others. Shine bright means be that light in the world that the world needs right now, that your team and your family needs. And be a gift means looking for your strengths that you have, that you can freely share, that give you energy and fill you back up when you share those gifts with the world. So lead with love, shine bright, be a gift. So, Sir Stephen, as we look at our self-care as leaders, and we're focused on that, what are the next things? You mentioned keeping our teams intact. What else?
Well, I think because these are such extraordinary times, and because normal operations have been interrupted to such a degree, we have to get back to a program of activity that is designed to make sure that everybody knows that we're still active, we're still out there, and it's not about us, it's about them. So, and this is how the ebook started. Basically, was my being inspired by a series of 4 videos produced by a guy called Mo Bunnell, who wrote a book called the Snowball Effect, which I suddenly realized I discovered him through Mike Michalowicz's podcast interview with him last June. Read the book, and he's produced these 4 little videos, 6 minutes, in which he says this is the best time for business development because all you have to do is get on the phone, stop making this about you, and ask your clients just how they're doing. What better time is there to just get out and ring every single person that is important for your business or prospect that you've got to say, how are you doing? You don't need to sell anything. You just be there. And making that a group thing, saying everybody in the group, just ring the people that you interact with, whether they are at whatever level they are, just get your list for the next week. We are going to, the 5 of us, the 10 of us, the 20 of us are going to just get out and ring people, ring customers, ring suppliers, ring partners, and ask them how they are. Because out of those conversations,
how you can support. How are you, and how can I support? Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, and that starting to externalize rather than worrying in your own broth of discomfort and worry and fear, and that's the only way to start moving the energy outside, because everything else comes from that. Because once you've got your team doing that, you're doing it and your team are doing it, and you're coming back half a day every day and sharing stories about what you've heard, then you can start doing the next thing, which I think is probably the most intelligent thing that you can do, and that is to start saying, okay, what are the financial implications of this? Let's share some numbers. And you don't have to do a course on teaching people how to read balance sheets. You just have to make sure that people understand what the very basic numbers of the business are, how they fit together, and to do that on a daily basis. You know, if we're all living in such short time horizons, then a day, getting through today, is all that matters. Mm-hmm. So if I know there are things you can do to generate sales. There are things you can do to cut costs. There are things you can do to put a moratorium on costs. But everybody has to know what those big pieces of furniture are, and you can't do it all by yourself. So you've got to start getting your team involved. You know, you've got to have people ringing up debitors. You've got to have people ringing up creditors. You've got to you save the big stuff for yourself and your C-suite if you have one. But this is a time to get everybody involved so that people can see how liquidity is being saved. You need one person on the team just to research programs that are available. Again, mm-hmm. you can't do all this by yourself. And if large areas of work are simply not falling away because we just can't do them, suppliers aren't delivering, customers aren't taking, collection isn't possible, then you've got people who are being paid, who are not doing anything. You need to reassign them, and you need to identify stuff that you can do, and you will be surprised at what people can do if you just tell them why you're doing it, give them a framework, and let them get on with it.
Absolutely.
Having somebody or two people, if you've got a small team, in charge of finding out what exactly are the programs that are available for wage support, for short-term financing, for small business loans, for whatever it is that your particular country is doing to support the small business community. It's changing every day. So you need at least one person to go through the websites, to talk to experts, your Chamber of Commerce, your local, your trade association, other business partners, just to see what's happening. How do we apply? How do we get it up and running? And to delegate that. Because as I say, you are not alone, and this is evolving very rapidly. So once you've got...
I want to interrupt here and just comment from a bigger picture perspective about the strategy that you're laying out and how to do this with your team. What you're doing by advising this is you are combating what the typical entrepreneur in fear will do, which is to focus on a problem and get very narrow, and tunnel vision will set in, and they will focus on that problem and not see the opportunities around. So by involving your team, you're immediately starting to combat tunnel vision. You're creating social support for yourself, which is good for your own well-being. It also gives your team that opportunity to feel like they are making a contribution. That is critical during a time where so many are feeling helpless and victimized right now by circumstances. So when we can move from victim mode into proactive, Absolutely. My actions have an impact, Absolutely. Morale is going to go up. And what you're advising from a pumpkin plan perspective, and pumpkin plan is significant strategy for a team. It's what we teach our clients at Tap the Potential. Connecting with your clients, your vendors, and asking, what do you need? How can I support? You will hear what their challenges are. You will hear opportunities that your business now has to step in and support them around those challenges, which will build loyalty and trust and cement those relationships for the future, but also show you business opportunities that you may not have been aware of until you had those conversations. Bringing that back as a team and having team members say, okay, I talked to 5 clients, this is what I'm hearing. And somebody else says, oh, I talked to 5 other clients and this is what I'm hearing. Now the team can come together and see what are the opportunities that we have. And I love it. Trapper is like getting all excited. He's like, yes, we've been doing this. We're on it. And I love reinforcing that. And I hope others are doing it. This morning, I sent a message to our strategist on the Tap the Potential team and all of our clients at Tap the Potential. I want you to know we're coming after you. If we don't see you showing up in group, if you're quiet on us, we're calling you on the phone because we're checking in. We want to be in touch with every single one of you through this because we don't want you to hunker down and get into fear thinking and tunnel vision. We want to get you out there doing these positive things that Sir Stephen and I are talking about today. Okay, Sir Stephen, I interrupted you. What else do you have?
If you don't interrupt me, I will go on for the next hour. I would very much like to shout out to Stacy, Amy, Steve Busquet, Trapper, and Rodrigo, who I've seen in the chat, to say, hi guys, lovely to see you here, and how very much I enjoyed being with you all a few weeks ago in Alexandria.
Tina's here too, Sir Stephen.
So at the heart of this, and maybe this is just my own perspective, I see this as an amazing opportunity for involving the entire team in numbers-based forecasting. Because if you're doing this on a daily basis and you're breaking your things to do, the furniture to be moved, the programs to be tapped into, the calls to be made, all this benefits hugely from keeping score and saying and tying that to the business numbers, even if they're just very rudimentary business numbers like revenue, total costs, and and liquidity. But all the leading indicators, because those are all lagging indicators, those are all scores that come up after you've done things. You also want to be measuring stuff that leads to those results, like making phone calls, like contacting customers, like all the things that we've just been talking about. So putting a number on those and assigning responsibility to those and capturing it on a scoreboard and huddling every day around that scoreboard is teaching so much knowledge around how the business really works, and is tapping into all that creative potential that your team will bring when it starts understanding how stuff functions in the business. Some businesses do this already, but if you're not doing it, then this is a great time to do it. And again, as Sabrina says, it creates a sense of positive action and momentum, which you can build on every single day. And at some stage, this is going to be over. It's going to be over. And the scoreboards that you create are the legacy that on which you will build, the time afterwards. And it's a fantastic opportunity to do that.
Yes, it is. And I'm just reading our feed here. Comments are a little slow on our side coming in, but I want to acknowledge Tina Smith is here, and Ross Moore is also here. And we have a lot of good commenting going on. These are many of our breakthroughs on the Bayou alumni, and we were all together here. And I want to send a big virtual hug to our alumni, because hugging is pretty big here on the Bayou, and it's in short supply now that we're all supposed to keep our social distancing. So lots of love and hugs to all of you, Retreat alumni, and the entire Tap the Potential family and community right now.
And what else? To Tina, Ross, and Ro as well.
Yes, and Rochelle, she has a watch party going on for us. So thank you, Rochelle Rizzi, for doing that. Steve says his team worked on forecasting today and cash flow projections, and it reduced a large amount of fear. Steve, that's such a good point, because when we're scared, it's hard to do our numbers and look at our numbers. And that's the best thing we can do, though, is to really get a handle on what the cash flow looks like, what the projections look like, so we know what we're dealing with and have a full range of view around what we're dealing with, and we can make strategic decisions from that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, there's a great story from one of the top mathematicians in the 18th century, the 19th century. It was a chap called Gauss, who was the inventor of the distribution formula, statistical distribution formula. When he was a child or a young man, he was absolutely terrified of the dark. And the way he would overcome his fear of the dark and being in a confined space was to measure it. And he became absolutely superb at calculating volumes in his head by just measuring. He measured the distances in the room and the size the furniture was. And he said the only way that he could overcome his fear of the contained space was by measuring it. And once he got it in numbers, it ceased to have any hold over him. And I've often thought of that in terms of business. The things that we're frightened of are the things that we've never really wanted to look hard at. But when you actually take a tape measure to them, in a sort of financial sense, you suddenly realize, well, either they're either worse than you thought they were, which is very rarely the case. The numbers are very rarely worse than your imagination has made them. But when you start measuring them, you realize actually it's not as bad as I thought. Mm-hmm. And once that happens, then you can start working on continuous improvement. And the very, very best way of doing that is to share them, because then the group fear disappears as well. So, Steve, you're absolutely right.
Yes, good. And so I'm noticing our time here. So we have time for one more tip out of your leadership in the time of COVID-19, and then we're going to share with our Facebook Live viewers how they can download the entire ebook from you, 33 pages, and it is packed full of good content to support you in your strategic decision making during this time. So,
you've mentioned almost everything. Except for, you mentioned sleep, and you've mentioned teamwork, and we've mentioned finance, we've mentioned strategy, and we've mentioned profit first, and we've mentioned visioning. There is one thing that you haven't mentioned that I think is really important, and I will tie it to a story that the Dalai Lama is supposed to have said, and I've read it, I think, from him. He said, everybody should meditate for 15 minutes a day. And if you don't have time to meditate for 15 minutes a day, you should be meditating for 45 minutes a day. And this is a great, if you're looking to make sure that with all the noise that is coming in at you, all this COVID-19 nonsense that you're hearing that we don't really understand, but it's meant to whip us up into a sort of hysteria that will make us do as we're told. And so, as I say, I'm accepting it, but this is a really good time to also invest in calming your brain down. And calming your brain is really easy. You just sit in a chair, you close your eyes, you put your feet on the ground, and breathe in, and don't forget to breathe out. And do that as deeply as possible, and do it for 15 minutes. And if you think it looks silly, well, forget it, because this is your brain that you're investing in. And there are some great apps like Headspace or Meditation Studio, and there are so many resources that you can read about. If you do not have a meditation practice, if you do not have one, then this is a really, really good time to start one. And even if it's just for the next couple of weeks, because the calm and the de-stressing that your brain will experience if you just do that is enormous.
Yes, it's critical. I meditated this morning. I journaled this morning. I was very intentional in doing my veggies first. So at Tap the Potential, we teach the entrepreneurs to do the self-care first. Meditation is, I second everything Sir Stephen is saying about the importance for keeping our brain in a good space. We have our brain to get through this, and we need to take care of it. That's our best tool that we have in our tool bag. And the thing about meditation that I hear so many entrepreneurs and team members struggle with is saying, I'm not good at meditating, meaning I start breathing and then I forget that I'm supposed to be breathing, and I think thoughts, and my body just kind of takes over and breathes for me. And so don't worry about perfection. This is not about being perfect with your meditation practice. This is about taking that 15 minutes and breathing. And every time you have a thought and you recognize you're not focused on your breathing again, just redirect and go back to, oh yes, I was breathing. I'm focused on deep breathing. And it is more about the practice than perfection when it comes to meditation.
Absolutely.
Journaling in conjunction with a meditation practice is like, putting meditation on steroids, because when we write longhand, not typing, but when we write longhand, it slows our thinking down and it creates space between our thoughts, and our opportunities come into that space. We will see things that we don't see when we just let those thoughts run through our heads.
Can I shout out to Nancy and Elizabeth as well, who have just popped up in the...
Yes.
Hello, ladies.
Hey, Dr. Nancy, you have a post here. She says, hop on over to Tremblay Chiropractic page for day 1 of Stealth Health Isolation Survival Pack. Dr. Nancy has been doing Facebook Lives regularly to support her community, and many of the entrepreneurs at Tap the Potential follow Dr. Nancy as well at Tremblay Chiropractic, their Facebook page. So thank you for sharing that, Dr. Nancy. And Elizabeth, I'm so glad to see you here. We were in the Entrepreneur as Investor course together with Sir Stephen earlier this year. So it's great to have you here as well. Sir Stephen, let's share with our community here that's listening how they can get a hold of Leadership in the Time of COVID-19, your ebook. And I want to tell you, when you download this ebook, it has a really fun title. I'm not going to reveal it to you. You just need to go download it and see for yourself. It will give you some cheer and humor. Humor, by the way, is also very good for our immune system. Find jokes, share jokes with your team. And with your families and friends. I received lots of fun jokes from a couple of people in my world, and they keep me laughing, and that's very important in this time. So Sir Stephen has a humorous title on his download. The formal title is Leadership in the Time of COVID-19, and you can get your hands on it at goodandprosper.com. Again, that's goodandprosper.com. I'm going to put the link here. Again, that is Leadership in the Time of COVID-19. The other thing that I want to share with you before we hop out of here is that the Tap the Potential team has put together a Q-Storm protocol to support entrepreneurs during the time of COVID-19. Q-storming is what we do at Breakthroughs on the Bayou, and it's different than traditional brainstorming or masterminding, where you share a challenge and you start brainstorming solutions. With Q-storming, you share a challenge and we brainstorm powerful questions that help you see that challenge in a new light and identify opportunities that you may not have been considering. So any of our current and past clients at Tap the Potential can request a laser coaching session with us at Tap the Potential as part of our work with you. There is no additional charge for that. So that is available to current and past clients at no charge. If you have never been a client of Tap the Potential and you want to take advantage of that, you can sign up for it at tapthepotential.com/strategy. We have a $250 investment for that if you have never been associated as a client with Tap the Potential, but it is available at no extra charge for current and past clients at Tap the Potential. If you are a current and past client, send us an email or reach out to us in the Slack channel and request your strategy session, and we will take you through that Q-Storm protocol. Sir Stephen, let's go out with our rally cry to inspire our entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
I'm going to count us down. 3, 2, 1.
Lead with love, shine bright,
be a
gift. Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.